here from pickinglessons.com. Blues on the banjo is always awesome. We've got a slow blues lead here in the key of G, standard tuning on the banjo. In a moment, we're going to take a look at the first 4 measures of the progression and have a look at what licks we have there. We're also going to have a look at the scale box that we're using for these licks. There's just one box we're using, and we're shifting that around for the appropriate chord changes. If you head to pickinglessons.com, you can grab yourself a copy of the tablature, but in the member section there, we will break down the remainder of the solo, really analyze what's happening with the licks. You'll also find a backing track and play along tracks there once you get to know the tune as well. Now, we are in standard tuning, we are in the key of G. The 12-bar chord progression uses the G7, the C7 and the D7th chords, and our improvising follows that. So our G7th position, yeah, so first thing we're going to be thinking about is the fact we've got these notes in there. They're going to be the real highlight of all of our licks. Around that we have this scale box, which is a real blend of the minor pentatonic and the major pentatonic. We're not using all the notes, we're using the notes that fit inside this position. So we're keeping it somewhat streamlined around our chord shape. Let's have a quick look at this scale position and we'll look at the notes that are inside the pattern. So our root note G is there at fret 5. Now, the flat 7 we have in this position, there's our root note, there's our flat 3, the minor 3rd, major 3rd, perfect 4th, there's our perfect 5th, which is inside the chord, major 6th, flat 7 and root note. So those intervals are what makes up this scale box, and it is a blend of the convenient notes between the minor and the major pentatonic scales we have in this position. But it's perfect, it works really well. So just try that scale once more. So from that flat 7, all the way up to the high G there in that position. And when we shift, for example, G7, we're going to use the same scale box. And same for the D7, yeah? Now, how we use those notes is important. So the most important thing is we highlight our notes from the chord. So all the strong notes are going to be the ones from the chord. The passing notes, not as strong. The weaker notes are the passing notes. And we find those in the rest of the scale box. So that's really important. We'll look at that as we move through. And any great solo, melody, improvisation is really going to do that. So we will check that out as we go through. We're in shuffle time, so long, short, uneven eighths, and we have a lot of triplets in the rhythm, so do keep an ear out for that. In terms of the right hand, lots of single string. You could use a lot of your thumb as well. The fingering is somewhat up for interpretation, so go about it in a way that you're comfortable with. Quick example, you could use the thumb for this first lick, all the way through. What I tend to do, thumb, index, single string style, so alternating thumb to index as we move through. And you can use some variation on that depending on what you're comfortable with. We're not going to dive too deeply into the fingering for the right hand. We're really going to dive into what's happening in our left. First lick kicks off on that 4th beat in the pickup. So 3, 4 and a 1. Yeah, so triplet up straight away. Quick little hammer on there. Notice our scale box. We're hammering into the notes of the chord, passing note, resolving. Yeah, so that's to the G. Now, adding a nice little vibrato onto that is kind of cool because we have a lot of notes here with a bit of space. And so with that space, we can hold it like that, or we can throw a little bit of a vibrato on, and the vibrato kind of helps with the sustain to a degree, but it sounds cool. And to play that vibrato, it's not about moving the fingers just hold the string. It's about getting the weight of your arm and your wrist to work against that string and work against the weight of the banjo. So if you have trouble with the vibrato, try not to, again, just use your fingers because it's really hard and not as controllable. Hold the fingers in position, yeah, and you can have your thumb on the neck there in this way, just over the top, but just try little bends to start with, pushing that string up just slowly, and again, using the weight of the banjo to kind of fight against the string as you push it. With some practice, you can speed that up, and you can get that really nice vibrato sound. So that's kind of cool to throw on those longer notes. So that first lick, into our second lick. we have a little quarter tone bend. So we've only got little bends in this tune on the banjo. We're not going to be bending in a crazy way, just a little quarter tone subtle bend. And so again, another triplet, 4 and 1. Okay, we're in our box up here for C7. So same scale position. And this quarter tone bend. As we play that up, very subtle, very small bend. So a quarter tone is suggesting it's not quite that next fret, it's in between. And so smaller rather than too big, and then stop the string before we let it go. This is really important. We don't want this sound. Don't bring it back down. Catch it with your pick, release, pick the string again for the next note. All happens quite quickly. Yeah, we want to connect these notes, but what we don't want to hear is this. Yeah, hear the difference? That was the release. This time I'll catch it. And I'm just using my middle finger there to do that. Thumb on the end. So again, fingering wise, go with what's comfortable. Right, first two licks just for the timing. 3, 4, and 1. 2, 3, 4, and 1. 2. Now, as we move on, let's have a look at the next lick. So the next lick comes in a slightly awkward place, the 2 and so within that second beat. So 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. All right, so you can see we're moving through this scale position, running down the scale, minor third, major third into the chord, resolving. So right at the end there, we do resolve right inside that chord, the G. So the hammer on is a quick one as we come out of that. 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Quick little hammer on there before we move along. Let's keep moving through. There's some similar ideas happening here again in this G box. So we're hammering on out of the minor third into the major third inside the chord to the perfect fourth, little quarter tone bend before we reach our root note there. Another quarter tone bend coming up. Yeah, so a couple of bends, 3 bends in this little passage. All right, so hammer on. Second beat, 1, 2 and 3 and. Just that again, 1, 2 and 3 and. Yeah, very subtle. And when pushing up that bend, and we want it to stop before we play the next note. This time you can use the underside of the third finger, just as you move on to the G. Keep it nice and clean. The last part of this lick. So it starts with the quarter tone, catch it, another quarter tone, and resolve. Pieced all together. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Excellent. That's a good one. That's a great one. All right, finishing off this next lick, similar idea. Moving to a different position. So we start off with the same hammer on, but we're running up the scale this time. And little pull off there on the third beat. 3 and 3 and 4 and. This position here, we're going to that C position next. And we're just borrowing the F note there up the neck as we do so. And the D note as well. So we're using the same notes, just in a slightly different position for this part of the lick. So what we have, 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and. All right, so getting comfortable with the position of your fingers and the scale position, the box, that's going to be really helpful. Plus knowing these chord positions, G7, C7, C7, D7. As we move, our boxes will follow those chords. That's the whole purpose of what we're looking at here at the moment. Let's just run these first 4 bars just to hear how that sounds. Not too fast from the top. Pickup starts on beat 4. 2, 3, 4. C will come in next. Cool. Great sounding licks. Banjo always sounds great with the blues. Yeah, it works really well. We've got some techniques to work on as we move through, but pickinglessons.com, we're going to continue breaking down this solo. We'll really analyze the licks over the next 8 bars of the progression. You'll also have that backing track and play along track in the members section. Plus, you can just grab the tablature while you're there. So pickinglessons.com. I'll see you there.